milestone for both IWANT and AVIA. So AVIA is actually the Asia Video Industry Association. Okay, and then it's a pleasure to have all of you here. Right now, I will be acknowledging some of our most distinguished guests who are with us today. Of course, we'd like to introduce the head of IWANT, Ms. Elaine Uy Kasipit. She's here. And of course, we have the Director of Policy and Research for AVIA, Claire Bloomfield. We also have the Public Policy Manager for Asia Pacific, Alex Long. This is from Netflix, right? Netflix Public Policy Manager. And we also have the Country Manager of HOOQ, Sheila Paul. And of course, representing IFLIX, this time the Country Manager, Sherwin De La Cruz. And not just them, of course, we welcome our media partners. Thank you so much for being with us today. So today we are about to witness two things. First is AVIA, or Asia Video Industry Association's commitment to make sure that everything is in place in the different regions for responsibly providing appropriate content to our users through, of course, legitimate means and ways. So, and the second one is IWANT's continuing commitment to upholding the user's interests by exercising self-regulation alongside our other partners or streaming platforms. So you see all of the different platforms merging here today as we witness this event. So at this point, I would like to, of course, we'll hear more from IWANT later. We'll also hear more from AVIA. But let's start off with these two questions. I'd like to ask you guys two things. First of all, to all our guests, how many of you, and I just need a quick show of hands, how many of you have used an online streaming app or an online streaming service ever? Even just watching one movie online or watching one TV series? Yes, 80% of the room. Okay, and second question, that makes it 19? No, just kidding. Second question is, how many of you have actually streamed a movie, an original, a TV series on IWANT? Even just once? Yes? 50% of the room. Yay! Great. Okay, so we're gonna hear a bit more from both groups, but let me start off by showing you a video of IWANT. Let's show this video.
Ano man ang trip mo, siguradong may para sa'yo. Kasi may IWANT tayo.
I'm ready.
Pinoy content ba ang hanap nyo? Lahat nandito. May old-time hits that you can binge and watch ng paulit-ulit.
Yes, I was born here.
At favorite TV shows na hindi pwedeng ma-miss. Merong exclusive extended shows. News coverage. And documentaries. Sobrang daming Pinoy movies. Mga blockbuster titles. Award-winning films.
Parang kasalanan ko.
At hard-to-find classics.
Iba itong gusto mo?
Ang bahala sa'yo. Gusto mo ng live? Huwag ka nang maghanap sa iba. Live stream. Live channels. Live sporting events. Dito, panalo ka. Yeah. Wait, gusto mo ng bago?
Oh, yes.
IWANT Originals ang bagay sa'yo. Ang freshest and bravest stories na exclusive mong mapapanood dito. Oh
my God, I love it na.
Simula pa lang yan. Kaya kahit ang buhay, hindi nauubusan ng problema, may IWANT ang Pinoy na laging nagbibigay saya. Pag may gusto, nasa IWANT yan.
So pwede na to, i-allow na oh.
Kailangan ako na lang sa buhay pa ako. Para naman yung pagkamatay ko. Isipin mo yun, ikaw habang nandun ka sa kabao, habang lahat sila iiyakan ka, at hilat ka, kita mo sila. Ewan ko na lang kung di pa nila malilimutan.
Akala ko ba sinigal ka na sa love?
Corny pa. Romantic.
And yet Manuel Quezon chose open the door. Right there and then. It is the right thing to do.
Simula ang katapusan,
At ang katapusan, ang simula.
umpisa pa lang pala ng kwento.
Okay, let's give a hand for IWANT. Thank you. IWANT is actually the first streaming platform made by Filipinos for Filipinos. And it's reinforcing its commitment today to content authenticity, free from hate speech, from hate crimes, from pornography, and other forms of inappropriate content. So today, that's what we're about to witness. And I forgot to introduce myself. Actually, I'm Michelle, and I'm privileged to be with you guys today. I will also be introducing a very special guest that we have today. And before I get there, let me just give a quick intro of what AVIA is. So the Asia Video Industry Association is the trade association for the video industry and ecosystem in Asia Pacific. It serves to make the video industry stronger and healthier through promoting the common interests of its members. AVIA is the interlocutor for the industry with governments across the region. Can you help me with that word? It leads the fight against video piracy and provides insight into the video industry through reports, very helpful, conferences, aimed to support a vibrant video industry. So, without further ado, let me introduce Claire Bloomfield, the Director of Policy and Research for AVIA.
Hi everybody. So first of all, let me apologise. I have a bit of a cold, so I don't normally sound quite so husky. And I will try my best to get through the next 10 minutes to give you a little bit of flavour about both what AVIA is, and I love how it's been pronounced properly here. All around the region we've heard AVIA, or AVIA, AVIA. Nobody quite knows how to pronounce our name. But as we know, we are the Asia Video Industry Association. I'm the Director of Policy and Research, so basically I get to do all the kind of in-depth look about all the countries we cover within Asia, how they regulate the industry and policy changes, but also to provide our members with some research on what the governments in the region are doing. Oh, it does work if you point it that way, it's good. So, a little bit about us. These are all of our members. We represent both local and international content. We have about 90 plus members, lots of different logos, and we represent all parts of the industry ecosystem, and that's quite important to us. We don't just represent those people who make content, we also represent the satellite companies, we represent the people who provide the content to you, whether it's through cable, and our role within, as a trade association, is to make the industry stronger. So whether it's advocating for lighter regulation, whether it's advocating for issues against piracy, which affect the industry, we're right there front and centre talking to all the regulators on behalf of our members and in conjunction with our members, some of whom are sat with us today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of concept about how the internet is changing the way that we're all viewing content, and IWANT is a great example of this. So this data is coming from Cisco, and it's a very interesting description of how we as consumers are going to use the internet going forward. And we're all starting to see that now, but the projections are huge. So if you look at how we're, in 2017, consumption of data for video was the blue figure, was only sort of 56 but by 2022 it's going to be huge at 240. And of that, all of the way we're looking at data in 2022, 82% of it will just be for viewing content on the internet. And that, for the industry, is extremely exciting because it gives you so much ability to grow, and it helps us as an industry move forward. So there's different parts of the internet that we're talking about, and these will not be unfamiliar things to you, whether it's social media, whether it's comms using Skype, whether it's piracy. We know there's a big issue with piracy being used on the internet, whether it's the sharing economy, picking up a Grab taxi. And what particularly I want to focus on today is the online curated content. So online curated content is part of the OTT universe, but we want to specifically separate ourselves from other parts of the OTT industry. So online curated content, such as IWANT and Netflix and View and HBO and HOOQ and IFLIX, too many to mention, we have specifically focused ourselves on how we can provide the consumer with the best experience possible in a very safe environment. So, online curated content, we offer content from many different countries to a global audience. You can guarantee that the content viewed on it is all copyright protected, so it's all legal and legitimate. It's personalised, you choose what you want to watch. You can go through a menu and you can select whether it's drama, whether it's scary, whether it's comedy, children, whatever. And there's lots of different revenue sources, so whether it's subscription on demand, or whether it's advertisement on demand, or whether there's very different methods of how we can consume this content. And quite a lot of consumers obviously like the free model, which is why we see piracy being such an issue. So a lot of suppliers are now looking at how they can do that with ad-funded services. So looking at some work that we've done and some research into this, we know that consumers prize in particular choice, and I as a consumer definitely like choice. Convenience, being able to view it whether it's online, whether you download it and watch it later, whether you're on your journey to work, whether you're at home. Family control, as a parent, I definitely know my child's watching some of this content, so I know that we can put that child control in place. And varied price points, so we can choose which model we want to spend our money on. And none of these will be unfamiliar, I'm sure. These are all some examples of online curated content services in the region. So obviously IWANT, Netflix, HOOQ, and there's different models. Some of them are local currently, but I'm sure have got plans to expand regionally and nationally. And then you've got the global players who are looking at doing local content for local consumers. And there's a huge benefit for the local economy. So global video on demand hugely invests in producing local content for their local markets. And apparently, according to an Alphabeta study, which has done some research into this, video on demand is expected to invest $10 billion into ASEAN content. Now, $10 billion into the region to support the industry in whether it's producers, whether it's actors, whether it's all the parts of the industry that go into making any kind of production is huge. But the problem we've got, and the problem we certainly see, is as regulators try to put demands on this industry, it makes it harder for the content to be created, it makes it harder for the content to be shown. So a key part for the video production industry is the reliance on local partners to make all these productions, and also the benefits for the local industry is for their content to then go global. And I've heard many examples of when content made locally has then reached a global audience, which previously was never heard of, because you make a piece here in the Philippines, it doesn't go anywhere apart from the Philippines. But now you have the ability to reach a global audience. And I'm sorry, this is not a Filipino example. This is a Vietnamese example of the film Fury, which was apparently the first Vietnamese film released in the US market as a theatrical release in March 2019. And then Netflix picked it up, and it's now globally distributed in many different languages. And no Vietnamese film has ever penetrated quite so many global markets and far more people watch it online than they do in the cinemas. So this is great news for the industry, whether it's in Vietnam, whether it's in the Philippines, wherever the content is being made, to reach a whole new audience that was never reached before. And this is only done because of the internet and because of online curated content. However, as I've already touched on, the online environment is fairly toxic. And this, again, will not be news to any of you. It's difficult for legitimate providers to make their way and compete against particularly the piracy part of the element. So as broadband penetration grows, so is the use of piracy growing. A recent YouGov survey that we did at AVIA suggested that 28% of Filipinos were accessing pirated content through the black boxes, the ISDs, and of those, 14% of them were then giving up their subscriptions to legitimate content. So that's not great for the industry because they're not getting the revenue, they're losing subscriptions, and how are they going to keep funding the productions? And as a consumer, to view content through a pirate site, you're risking seeing things about pornography, you're risking seeing things about gambling. Who knows what's being downloaded onto your device if you're using through a pirated site. And obviously, from a government perspective, the pirate sites don't pay taxes and don't have any ethics. So our concern is that we as legitimate providers should be promoting the industry and asking regulators to actually focus on where there's a real issue, which is the piracy side of it. So the online curated content industry, what we're here to talk about today is the code that IWANT are going to sign up to, which we're excited and delighted that they are joining us. We are responsible and responsive citizens. So we can reassure both consumers and governments that we are committed to make sure that the environment that which you're viewing content in is both safe, you should be comfortable as a consumer, and you should be able to find anything that you want without worrying about malware, without worrying about adverts for gambling, about being directed to sites where you really wouldn't want your family to be seeing. And there's actually two self-regulation codes currently in operation. There's one specifically just for the Indian market that was signed, and the one that IWANT is joining today is the ASEAN one, which we're very excited to announce. Came into effect in June 2018, and IWANT is the first Filipino company to sign up to it. So really our message is that we don't want the same kind of regulation that we have currently on pay television, on other providers. This is a new kind of television, it's a new kind of content, and therefore we need a new kind of regulation. We are responsible, we are really respectful, we have legitimate content, and self-regulation is definitely the easiest way forward for us as an industry to make sure we can be innovative and flexible and meet the consumer needs and demands. It also enables us to be competitive against the piracy side of the ecosystem, which clearly can be much more flexible, has much more money, and doesn't have to worry about governments cracking down on them. So we constantly talk to regulators in the region about actually, rather than trying to focus on putting burdensome regulations on us, look at our self-regulation approach, look at a light touch approach for us and enable us to become much more flexible and responsive and not allow the doors open for the piracy part of the ecosystem. So the regulation code itself, as I say, it was launched in 2018, and as was mentioned earlier, it has a number of key elements. The code itself, hang on a sec, I did bring the hard copy. It's slightly very underwhelming itself as a document. It's very thin, but it has. Oh no, I didn't mean to press the thank you button. There we go. So it offers a number of guarantees for those companies that sign up to it. We guarantee that there will be no piracy, there will be no child pornography. We will prevent terrorist and extremist content, whether that's religious, whether it's any kind of extremism. It gives you tools as a parent and a consumer to enable age-appropriate content. and it empowers consumers to view what they want. And we have advertising and marketing in line with local practices. So we understand each of the markets that we're operating in, and we understand what the concerns of each of the regulators are, and we ensure that our content that's available in all those countries meets those requirements. So this is us as an industry doing what we don't want the regulators to do for us, so that we have control and the flexibility. And there you can see some of the current signees of the code, and it's extremely exciting that IWANT are joining us today. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was very informative, actually. And we can really see that their commitment is for a safe environment for all of us to consume our content, right? And now, we'll hear from IWANT, the first Filipino streaming service to sign the ASEAN self-regulation code. Please give it up for Ms. Elaine Uykasipit, the head of IWANT.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the partners. Claire, that's a wonderful presentation. Thank you. 9 months after our launch last 2018, IWANT has grown its presence in the local streaming space. We're no longer just a catch-up service, so please, it's not anymore IWANT TV, it's IWANT. And we have been aggressively producing a lot of our original shows through our original programming, may it be series, documentaries, and movies as well. Our stories showcase a different and more aggressive storytelling for our audience of today. As the Philippines' first local streaming platform, IWANT is excited to announce our joining in AVIA's Asian Subscription Video on Demand Content Code, coming together with our global partners from Netflix, IFLIX HOOQ, and actually there's a lot more. They're the ones who are just here today, us, joining you in this press con. So online content has no barriers, but as video on demand platforms, we have a moral responsibility to our audience. We strive to make our content relatable and relevant to our audience, but also braver and bolder too. And we owe it to our viewers to self-regulate our dissemination as more and more people turn to us for entertainment. This is also an opportunity for IWANT to connect and learn from the partners to achieve global standards in providing a better service to our fellow kapamilyas. As the video consumption landscape changes, we stand committed to serve and provide an accessible, safe, and empowering content offerings to our audiences that distinguishes us from a legitimate source of entertainment. Maraming salamat po sa pagsunod. I would like to invite our partners to join me here up on the stage for a signing and photograph for the joining and officializing the content.
Foto lang tayo.
Oh.
Lapit tayo, lapit.
Go, go, go.
We'll start off with a group photo.
Everyone.
I guess everyone's ready.
Okay. So look here. So everyone is here. Then 1, 2. Alright, 2 more here. And then the other side. Here.
Okay, so we may continue with the actual contact signing. Code signing.
Sorry, second. Ina ko lang. Alright.
Okay, So at this point, we will be proceeding to the question and answer, and I have Justin on the floor.
Can we have a one photo
To be
standing?
helping. Oh, okay. Let's have one photo of them standing.
Alright. So closer to the center. So closer to here. Then one, two. Right here. And one more. And then the handshake between Sir Alex and Sir. Alright, so looking here.
With Claire. Yes. With India.
Alright, who's there? Alright, then one. So eyes here, then one. Closer, then one, two. Handshake, then one, two. One more.
The partners stand as witness.
Alright. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so is Justin around? Justin will be there. Justin will be helping me out. While he goes around, I will be asking the first question actually to Claire. Hi, Claire. Welcome to the Philippines. Okay, so we saw that you had several partners already joined in with AVIA. Can you tell us a specific benefit that any of them have had by being part of AVIA? So I know that you're really helping out organizations to self-regulate their content. So what has been an example, maybe, from one of your partners wherein AVIA was actually very beneficial to them?
Oh, I don't think you should ask me that. I think you should ask everybody else that. I mean, you know, as I said in my presentation, signing up to the code enables us as an association to make a much stronger case to regulators around the region, whether it's here in the Philippines or whether it's anywhere that we operate in. And therefore, as a benefit, I guess, for people like Netflix and HOOQ and IFLIX, they know that we are engaging with regulators to try to stop them introducing things that makes it much harder as a provider or as a platform to operate in some of the markets. So, I mean, the Philippines is a great example of self-regulation anyway, so the regulators here really understand the concept of it. That's not necessarily the case in all of the markets that we talk to. So I guess the benefit that our signees see is that they know we can use this as a tool to work with the regulators to prevent anything that's detrimental to the industry growing. But I don't know if any of the other kind of signees want to make any comments.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question I have is actually for Elaine, for IWANT. So I understand that even prior to this event, you have been practicing self-regulation on your own platform. Can you tell us more about that?
Hello? Yes. Well, for an IWANT content, so we've seen a lot of our originals is the one that really much more affected in terms of self-regulation, because the rest of the library, which is heavily TV and movies, have been pre-regulated prior for it to be aired. So the originals, there's a lot of deliberation that we have internally, so you don't really see that as much, but a lot of the content, the more daring ones or the more bolder stories that we talk about, really had a lot of more outtakes that we would have, you know, the lack of regulations allow us to show it. But within our own team, we try to really still be able to tell the story without being saying too much of it unnecessarily to try to self-regulate. At the same time, we've added some technical features to really access the content on an appropriate age level as part of our technical hygienics check. So these are our things that we still continue to do in the absence of this AVIA association, which is now very much welcome to join, because we are really committed to actually do that for our audience today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Elaine. Now from our media partners.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Our next set of questions will come from Nestor Cuartero of Manila Bulletin.
Hi, good afternoon. The online sourcing of entertainment or other programs, we get this, the common notion is that there is no censorship, no, and we get them all for free, you know, without any previous curating or well, let's call it censorship. This new phenomenon that you're introducing since 2017, what does it how does it impact on viewers? Will they get the impression that everything now that they see on streaming platforms had been previously censored?
I think it's working now. I mean, it's not really, I think you're comparing two things. So that the uncensored version is the piracy that you're talking about, where the whole issue of what you can see, whether it's pornography, whether it's gambling, is something clearly none of us as consumers want to access, or want our families in particular. I have 2 children, and I really don't want them to see some of the things that I know can pop up on those, what you call uncensored sites, what I would call piracy sites. What we're promoting as part of the code and as responsible industry players is not so much censorship, it's about curating the content so that the responsibility passes to the consumer to choose how that content is viewed. So we have parental controls on all of the people who signed up to this code. They all have parental controls on whether it's the app or whether it's through a TV, to ensure that if the content is not specifically available for under 16s, then under 16s can't access it without their parents making it accessible for them. So this just gives consumers much more confidence that the content is appropriately aged, but also they're not seeing things that in the wider ecosphere are completely inappropriate. So it's not really about censorship, it's about curating it. And it also means that you're, as a consumer and for regulators, know that the content is legitimate. It's copyright protected, so they have the copyright to show you that content, whereas none of the piracy sites have done anything about copyright, they just stream it illegally.
Curating is a relatively new word in this kind of media, in this kind of environment. How, in your definition, how does it differ from censorship?
So, I mean, curated really means it's somebody at the industry level has taken a look at the content and has placed an indication of what age appropriate level it's for. And in specific markets, they understand that there's some sensitivities around showing whether it's religious content, whether it's extremist content, whatever it might be. So that's what curating is. And places like Facebook and YouTube, there's no curation going on. That content is just uploaded and nobody is taking any control over it. So that's what we mean by curation, is that somebody has understood that the ratings and the appropriate levels have been placed on that content, so it's not accessible to all. Censorship is a completely different issue, whereby obviously that means that you're being regulated to have completely censored content.
Last point. Curating or regulating videos or films that you show on these platforms can be relative culturally. No? What holds true in one country in the ASEAN region, like a Muslim country, can be different from one that is a Catholic country or a Christian country. And so this goes on and on. How is it possible to come up with a blanket code to cover each and every country in the region?
I mean, this is a blanket code. I mean, this doesn't specify in Thailand we will not show this and in the Philippines we will not show this. This is a very top level code that says we will be the responsible player who curates the content relevant for the market in which it is operating. So it's a flexible code which allows the operators and the platforms to curate specifically for each market. So whilst we are happy to talk to regulators if they want a market-specific code, that's something we try not to get into because it's much more flexible to have a higher level code that gives the industry flexibility.
Thank you.
All right. Our next set of questions will come from Isenet of the Daily Tribune.
I can get the name of the Australian woman, lady. Miss Claire.
Australian? I'm British.
Okay, British.
About Brexit.
British, okay. AVIA is, as you have defined it, is now the overall curator of entertainment content in the global in Asia Pacific. Is that true?
No.
No, I'm sorry, that wasn't my point. AVIA is a trade association, so
What about trade association?
a trade association for the video industry. So we have a number of members who don't even do content. We are simply the holders of the code. So we have developed the code along with the signatories to develop the code, but we don't curate content ourselves. We don't produce any content. We are just simply a trade association that talks to governments.
Okay. So as a trade association, why does IWANT want to be in that association? Because if you are talking of regulation, I think IWANT can regulate by itself because it knows the rules of the country, it adheres to certain provisions in the MTRCB since they're also producers. The company they are with, they produce content for cinemas and television, which is public. So why does IWANT have to be with AVIA?
I'll answer that for Claire, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so we wanted to be with, I agree, we can do exactly what you said on our own, but we wanted to be part of the association to strengthen and committed to really be more responsible as one group. That's why, as you can see, everybody is here together with AVIA to actually show that we are all responsible in how we curate our content, that we wanted to really be at the pillar in terms of the front and center of the changing landscape of the digital today, which really, at the end of the day, parents can sleep at night that their kids are actually watching content that has been has a committed censorship amongst all of these partners that we face today.
So, what does AVIA get from these memberships of streaming services? Apart from the bonding that you have with them.
We're all really good friends. I mean, obviously for us, the more industry players that we can get signing onto the code, the more powerful it becomes as a tool. And it enables us to go into yet more governments, particularly in Asia, but I mean, it's something we'd like to see as a global standard. So the more both local content providers that sign on, along with regional, along with global, makes it a much more powerful piece of paper to present to regulators and say, look, we have brought all of these people together, and all of these people, without you telling them, have agreed that they will do this. So it means it just opens the door for much more open conversations.
I'm curious about this code. What is this code? Is this a secret, something that you have to config to decipher so you can watch the content?
No, it's not a secret code. I mean, it's simply a code that, as I said in my presentation, the signatories agree that they will commit to a certain number of standards. So it's just
it's just an agreement among
absolutely
you.
Yeah, it's just
that
something that they have signed up to say.
Yeah, okay.
We agree that we will do this.
For example, IWANT is a Philippine streaming service. How will it fit into your more Western streaming services like HBO, Fox Plus, Netflix, and like Video Prime, something like that? How? Because, you know, culturally, as Nestor pointed out, we're different from the Western. I know I speak English, but I'm not Western. I'm Filipino. So it basically my culture, my thinking is quite different from what you, perhaps as British, would think. So how will IWANT now fit into this global arena that you're proposing in the curating of entertainment content in the web?
But we're not curating their content. IWANT will continue to curate their own content, and Netflix will continue to create their own content. HOOQ and IFLIX will create their own content. We don't curate anybody's content. We're simply promoting the code as a way of getting responsible industry players to say, we have committed to this guidelines, and therefore we would like to promote that to regulators around the region. So it actually enables enables everybody to go into every market. So it will enable growth. So actually, we hope that Filipino content will become much more available outside of the Philippines. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. But it will continue to be curated by IWANT. It's not something I'm going to impose my values on, because I don't curate any content. I'm simply a consumer of it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Alright, thank you, Tito Aiza. Our next question will come from Iza Iglesias of the Manila Times.
So we understand that AVIA has this anti-piracy advocacy. However, there are some contents that are being uploaded in Facebook and YouTube. So what does IWANT, Netflix, IFLIX HOOQ have measures to prevent these piracy issues?
So, no, it's not my answer. Come on, everybody else can answer.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Sheila from HOOQ here. So just on the piracy front, there are certain piracy measures, of course, that HOOQ or any of the players here can help with. Most of the piracy is actually being controlled or can be controlled by the content creators themselves. So for example, there are technologies that they can be used on YouTube, for example, to be able to fingerprint your content so that it's not being claimed or uploaded by another, by a party that has no right to it. Same with Facebook, that's also the same case. In the case of HOOQ, for example, or any of the players here, if we see any pirated content out there, we immediately report it to the content creators, since they do have the IP rights on this one, and they can hopefully help take it down. But it's of course always a chase, to get to these pirates so that they don't continue to proliferate that. And we encourage everyone, of course, it's not something that only we can do. It's something that the entire industry needs to help with in order to keep on, the pirates away.
Hi, I'm Sherwin from IFLIX. Well, to add to what Sheila said, from our perspective, operating our own platforms, every piece of content that gets transcoded and coded into the cloud comes with a technology called DRM, or Digital Rights Management, which is usually by one of the top 3 players, Apple, Google, and Microsoft. So all of the DRM are created by them. So ultimately, anything and everything that you watch will not be piratable. So all of us have this download and watch offline feature. Essentially what happens is you get to download the piece of content and encode and encrypt it inside your phone. So the only way you can watch it is through the device that you've downloaded it. You can't really transfer it outside and upload it to Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So those are like industry measures that we will take when we showcase our content in our own platforms.
All right. Sir, for Netflix, the question is
Sure. I can just add a couple of words to the last point. Yeah. So really to build on what Sheila, Claire, and Sherwin say, the piracy issue is absolutely an industry sort of issue. So working on it company by company, yes, of course there are really important technical measures each company and content creator can take to protect their content. Netflix joins the other companies in doing that, but it's such a huge problem, not only in the Philippines, but across Asia and the world. It's the sort of thing that we work really closely with our trade associations like AVIA, as well as the Motion Picture Association, who have really robust programs to work on the issue at a regional and a global level.
all right, thank you. Thank you, Isa, for your question. Our next question will come from Michael Almazen of Bixbus.
I'm a user and subscriber of HOOQ, Netflix, IFLIX, and IWANT. I love streaming apps. I just noticed that only Netflix has these kids profiles for those kids. Any plans for IWANT Netflix, IWANT IFLIX and HOOQ to have this kind of kids profile?
So ours is not specifically profile, but there's a portion that's for kids. It's going to be password protected soon, so we're going to roll out that feature very soon.
Wow, that's great. How about for IWANT? But I noticed for IWANT that parang they show adult contents only at midnight.
Yes, yes. So that's part of self-regulation for our end. And also the horror, we launched Abandon
Yes.
Midnight
Today.
earlier today. For the kids content, we don't have a lot of kids content right now, but as we build it, we're definitely going to be following suit in terms of having a separate access and profile team for the kids content. So pretty much IWANT is heavily still the 18 to 35 years old targeted, but as soon as we grow our kids audience segments, we'll sure to be following the same.
How about for HOOQ?
Yeah, so HOOQ approaches it differently. We don't have a kids profile, but in the other markets, it's already been launched, a PIN code feature where a parent can actually set a PIN so that restricted content will not be made available if you set up that PIN. So it's already available in some of the other markets, and soon Philippines will follow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bix. Our next question will come from Leo Balante of Rank Magazine.
Hello, hi, good afternoon. I just want to ask, again, Claire, sorry for if I have to ask you again. Just want to know more about the association. So how does a streaming platform become part of this association? Did IWANT or Alex of Netflix share IFLIX and HOOQ get invited, or they have to seek you out there to become members?
Anybody can join that wants to pay our membership fees. So let me be clear, there's a difference between the code, which is open to all non-members of AVIA, and AVIA membership, which is a very different thing. So absolutely anybody can approach us to join, you don't have to wait to be asked. We simply ask that you pay our membership fees, and you get access to all of our restricted products that we offer, some of the reports that I write, some of the research that we do, and obviously invitations to join the programs that we run.
So in terms of the registration or the membership fee, is it a standard fee for everyone, or is it tailored to one?
Do you really want me to tell you how much it costs? It's it's not cheap. It's a standard trade association, so yes, we have individual memberships available, but most of our memberships are corporates. So you're talking a kind of quite high corporate rate for members to join.
Thank you.
All right, we're down to our last question from Alan Sancon.
So IWANT, I just want to ask, parang kayo po kasi yung first Filipino, yung streaming, di ba? Ano po yung what kind of content your users expect dun sa mga susunod yung mga gagawin or years?
Yeah, so as you can see, our lineup has been very different, no? So we've been doing a lot of documentaries recently, mga batang pause for the HIV awareness. We have the recent TNT documentary on how they all started to become famous in the United States and actually worldwide. We have a lot of in the pipeline in terms of really being able to tell stories that has not been told before, and that's one of the things that we want to be more different to what we're doing on other platforms that we still produce content for. So we're gonna be doing a lot of the mix of certain love themes that you would normally see on air. You'll see a lot of stories untold that you wanna say. We're going to be launching The Midlanders this Friday. It's really a documentary for in lieu of the Quezon's Game, if you've seen it. So there's a lot more different genre, different takes that we wanted to do, and we've been aggressive. We've launched around 20 originals since our relaunch last November. So different stars, different match, different stories. Please expect a lot more from IWANT originals.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your questions. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today. And thank you to our panel. Can we give them another hand? Thank you for graciously taking on each question. And we look forward to seeing an even safer online viewing environment as IWANT and AVIA and our fellow partners practice responsible content curation. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you, guys.